Well, the Trump-Rogan interview, it's a phenomenon they cannot contain. 35 million views in just 3 days, and that's with the algorithm working overtime to suppress it. But here's what's really telling. Kamala Harris, well, her team's in full damage control. They're offering Rogan a measly 1-hour interview, but only if he travels to her. Meanwhile, her appearance on the Call Her Daddy podcast barely scratches 700,000 views. The contrast is devastating, and they know it. And speaking of suppression and cover-ups, there's a reason why more Americans than ever are protecting themselves with dash cams. Just like we're capturing and exposing the truth about election interference, a dash cam captures and protects you from those who try to manipulate the truth on the road. Our state-of-the-art 4K dash cam with night vision, 24/7 motion detection ensures you're never left vulnerable to deception. Visit carvisionx.com now and get free shipping on your own Road Guardian, because in times like these, documentation is your best defense. Now, let's get into the latest happenings and news from the Trump-Rogan podcast and the fallout. Now, it's like a 3-hour podcast. I think I've only been able to listen to about 2/3 of it so far. But I've got some clips here. I'm going to play some clips, but most importantly, it's the reaction of everybody just freaking out about it. I have to say, though, one of my favorite moments was when he was discussing abolishing the income tax. Now, when I was at Madison Square Garden and I was going up the escalator, and I was wearing my leather jacket with the stars and stripes and star-spangled leather jacket. And this woman from this local news pulled me aside, and she asked me a bunch of questions. And she said, well, why do you support Trump? And what do you think about this? And what do you hope he talks about? And I specifically told her, I said, I want him to talk about getting rid of the income tax. Like he's talked about, getting rid of the tax on tips, tax on overtime, tax on Social Security. I think these are all excellent things, but I think the ultimate tax break would be getting rid of the income tax, because everybody would benefit. Like everybody, it doesn't matter. It's like you're not part of one of these categories of worker who gets tips or Social Security or an overtime worker. Everyone is oppressed by the income tax system. And of course, this is what was brought up on the Rogan podcast. So before I get to the reaction, let's just do a flashback on this.
Did you just float out the idea of getting rid of income taxes and replacing it with tariffs?
Well, okay.
Were you serious about that?
Yeah, sure. But why not? Because ready? Our country was the richest relatively in the 1880s and 1890s. A president who was assassinated named McKinley. He was the tariff king. He spoke beautifully of tariffs. His language was really beautiful. We will not allow the enemy to come in and take our jobs and take our factories and take our workers and take our families unless they pay a big price. And the big price is tariffs. And he'd speak like that, but he was right. And then around in the early 1900s, they switched over stupidly to, frankly, an income tax. And you know why? Because countries were putting a lot of pressure on America. We don't want to pay tariffs. Please don't. Believe me, they control our politicians. If you look at the kind of numbers that these guys make.
Did you just float?
So just getting rid of the income tax would be a huge win for the American people. I don't have to explain it to you. You know exactly how good it would be. Now, there's talk. The big talk today was about Kamala Harris going on the Joe Rogan show, and everyone's saying that, basically she just denied she didn't want to go on the show. But this is what Trump and Joe Rogan spoke about with respect to the possibility of Kamala appearing on the show.
I hope.
Can you imagine Kamala doing this show?
I could imagine her doing this show.
She'd be laying on the floor.
She was supposed to do it, and she might still do it, and I hope she does.
She's not going to do it.
I will talk to her like a human being. I will try to have a conversation with her. If she did this kind of an interview
with you, I hope she does, because it would be a mess. She'd be laying on the floor comatose. You'd be saying, call in the medics.
I think we'd have a fine conversation.
Call in the medics. So, the Rogan interview podcast, 35 million views, despite suppression from YouTube. That was 1 day ago. Kamala Harris on the Call Her Daddy podcast, 732,000 views in just 3 weeks. Trump on the Rogan Experience, 38 million in 3 days. Kamala's big podcast today to compete with Joe Rogan and Donald Trump has amassed 32,000 likes and 73,000 dislikes. Okay, now we're learning that J.D. Vance is going to go on the Rogan podcast, and that's going to happen tomorrow. The Trump episode is closing in on 40 million views in 3 days on YouTube alone. The Vance episode will do insane numbers too. This is too awesome. Now, Joe Rogan 22 hours ago stated, for the record, the Harris campaign has not passed on doing the podcast. They offered a date for Tuesday, but I would have to travel to her, and they only wanted to do an hour. He says, I strongly feel the best way to do it is in the studio in Austin. My sincere wish is to just have a nice conversation and get to know her as a human being. I really hope we can make that happen. Well, Elon Musk responded to that, said, good clarification. I would definitely watch that podcast. Hour 2 would be. And he's got the melty face emoji. Charlie Kirk says, America deserves 3 hours with Kamala and Joe Rogan unscripted. Hope it happens and she stops trying to dictate the terms. You have a format, it works. She should stop trying to change it just like America. Hodge twins responding, the studio's the only way. Let the whole world see the real Kamala Harris. What are they scared of? And then we have this other post that just came out. This is the Harris campaign offered to appear, but requested that Rogan travel to her to limit the interview to an hour. Okay. They were trying to dictate the terms of the interview. Harris agreed to appear on the podcast. However, her demands are that the interview be limited to an hour and take place on location of her choosing. See, it's like going to like her home turf. You know, it's like when the home team, you know, is playing out of their stadium and they've got the home field advantage is gone. Right? So Joe Rogan in his natural environment is going to have a more personal interview with Kamala, but taking him out of his environment with his, his wood backdrop and his neon sign and the chair he sits in every time, his microphone, all of his, his motor memory, his muscle memory, everything that goes along with his podcast is all part of it. So by taking him out of the element, he loses that comfort level, and then he's placed into some strange environment in Washington D.C., limited to an hour. And it's not going to come across in the same way. And she's just dictating the terms. Valentina Gomez says Kamala traveled to the sex podcast, Charlemagne, but is too scared to speak for more than an hour without getting the questions in advance. She's too stupid for Rogan. She's afraid and incompetent. Tara Bull says, it takes a major coordinated effort to hide a video with 36 million views between the biggest podcaster and the most famous person in the world. Because of this, Joe Rogan has now uploaded the full Trump interview to X. Would they do this to a Kamala interview? Now, some people have stated here that it was a mistake, that the video was accidentally published as unlisted, and then it was put into a playlist, and then. So here's what happens on YouTube. People don't realize. And I actually spoke with Mark Dice about this today, and I've personally seen this happen with my own videos. So if we publish a video, we upload a video, we mark it as unlisted, which means it's not going to be put out into general circulation. But if you add that video to a playlist, then it inadvertently becomes listed. Because if your playlist is public, then even though your video is unlisted from the search, it will still show up in the playlist where you have added it to. And I notice this happen all the time. When we would add an unlisted video to a playlist, and suddenly we're getting views on it and people are commenting on it, but I'm like, how are people doing this if it's not even public? And then we realize it's because we added it to a playlist. So when I was talking with Mark about this, he was bringing it to my attention, and I believe that's exactly what happens. That someone on Joe Rogan's side accidentally added it to the Joe Rogan podcast playlist unlisted, and they were about to release it, but at a specific time. Because when I was talking with Mark, he's like, they released this video at the worst possible time. Like, why would you drop a video, like, first of all, 3 hours after you did it, and on a Friday night? Like, you don't drop a news piece on a Friday. Like, that's the dead news day. When you want news to die, that's when you drop news, on a Friday. because everyone's going into the weekend and nobody cares. So it's very likely they had a different publishing schedule for that interview. And then when they released it, accidentally unlisted in a playlist, it leaked, and then people saw it in the playlist, and then like, hey, the interview just dropped, and it starts to circulate. The links of the YouTube video start to circulate, but then when people try to search for it, they can't find it because it's not listed. So the only way you could get it is if someone sends you a direct link, or if that link is published on X. So then people inadvertently think that the YouTube video is actually being suppressed, when in fact it was a mistake on the side of the publisher because they marked it unlisted and added to a playlist. Do you understand what I'm saying? That's how it works. So it's very likely that that's what happened. But other people are assuming that it's the fact that YouTube actually is suppressing it, when I don't think it has anything to do with it, because it was unlisted intentionally by people on Rogan's staff. Therefore, when they did publish it, eventually it shows up. Now, I haven't tested myself to see if you search for the Rogan podcast with Trump, if it's actually there, if it does show up in search results or not. I mean, it could very well be suppressed from that capacity, but from the standpoint that I understand, if an unlisted video is not published, but published to a playlist, then you have the possibility of it leaking and not showing up in search results. So Doge Designer 21 hours ago states that the Joe Rogan uploads his interview with Donald Trump on YouTube. YouTube censors the interview in search results, while Kamala Harris' interview remains unaffected. Joe Rogan uploads the full 3-hour interview on X. So that's what's being believed. That's what people are believing is happening here. But I think it's the other way around. In the meantime, Kamala Harris decided to pull her fake black accent again for the Breakfast Club.
Back to what is your strong push to any black man right now that feels like you're not speaking directly to them and about the things that they should care about for their families and for themselves?
Well, Lauren, I have to tell you, back to what Charlamagne is shouting in the background, the brothers aren't saying that.
What is your strong push to any black...
Yeah, she's known for those accents, isn't she? Let's continue here. Okay, so she takes, J.D. Vance appearing on Joe Rogan. This is something, this is interesting. This post says the YouTube Joe Rogan censorship. This person says, we were reached out to by a Google employee who shared that YouTube had marked the video as XLQ, meaning extremely low quality spam. This can happen in a couple ways. Most likely way is a mass reporting of the video. Once the video reaches a certain amount of reports, this happens automatically. They're claiming it's likely there was a campaign to mass report the interview going online. Perhaps there's an online forum or thread where this is happening. If anyone has any ideas, please share below. Okay, so if that's the case and the tag was placed on the video, then yeah, it would show up as marked as spam and then suppressed in the search results. Okay, so perhaps my previous theory is completely incorrect, but the structure of YouTube publishing, that still remains true to any YouTube person. Okay, but there is a strong possibility that there was a mass reporting of the video that triggered this. Okay. Elena Treen, early Tuesday, Rogan said Harris had not turned down the interview. The campaign had offered to tape today, but he didn't want to travel to her as he believes the best way to do the interview is in studio. And now, do you guys see this awkward moment? This is not to be published, this one. Listen.
Okay, now I want each of you to shout your own name. Do that. Because it's about all of us. It's about all of us. And listen, I have fought my whole career to put the people first.
Wow, that's so awkward. She's got all this momentum. The crowd is chanting her name. And she tells them to stop to chant their own name, and they go completely dead silent. And then she's like, they don't respond. They don't start chanting. Like, who's gonna start chanting their own name? I'm gonna start going, Gary, Gary. And like Susan next to me is going, Susan, Susan. That doesn't happen. Never happens. I mean, what a way to burn the momentum of a moment like that. Clearly, she does not know how to read a room, and clearly she has no idea what she's doing on that stage. And it just turned into a seriously cringe moment because it just turned dead silent, and she was like, uh-oh, what did I do? Okay, let's take a look back more at some of these hot moments from the Rogan interview.
I was talking about the auto industry.
Yes.
It's a bloodbath because Japan and China are taking our auto. And I said, it's a bloodbath. They said, he used the word bloodbath.
You said if you
think
don't
of
win, it's going to be a bloodbath because they're going to take over.
Right.
That's exactly
it's a terrible thing they do.
But that's the problem with propagandists because they take things out of context, and ultimately what they do is they diminish their own credibility because people don't want to listen to them anymore because they see that they've done that and they recognize what's going on and they feel insulted. Their intelligence is getting
look
insulted.
At the ratings.
Yes.
You know, shows like yours. So I have a son who's very smart and tall, Barron, right? And he knows all about you. He knows about guys I never heard of. He said, Dad, you don't know how big they are. They're big. You know, he told me how big. I said, who the hell is he? Like Ross. I did. He said, Dad, he's a great guy. I mean, guys that are doing, it's a whole new world out there.
It's a different world. And
but, you know, I'm on TikTok now.
Congratulations.
And I've done really well. No, but you know the crazy, have you seen the numbers? Billions of hits. It's crazy.
I'm sure. TikTok's a wild application,
and I've gone up 30 points. A Republican is always down 30 with young people. I'm plus 30. And I'm on TikTok.
I think
it's had a huge impact.
Young people are rejecting a lot of this woke bullshit. Young people are tired of being yelled at and scolded. They're tired of these people that they think are mentally ill telling them what the moral standards of society should be today. And people are upset.
There's a big difference now, but even in just a couple of years, I was shaking hands with people. They're young people.
The rebels are Republicans now. They're like, you want to be a rebel, you want to be punk rock, you want to buck the system, you're a conservative now. That's how crazy. And then the liberals are now pro silencing criticism. They're pro censorship online. They're talking about regulating free speech and that regulating the First Amendment. It's bananas to watch.
Joe, they come after their political opponent.
Well, they do.
I got more guys. I always say, you know, I kid, but I'm not kidding. I've been investigated more than Alphonse Capone. He was the meanest of them all. He'd kill you in 2 seconds if he didn't like you, right? I've been under investigation more than Alphonse Capone, only because it's political opponent stuff. And I've won. I won the big case in Florida. I'm winning the other stuff. You win, but you know what they did? They did something that's only done in third world countries. They came after their political opponent.
Yes.
I could have put crooked Hillary in jail.
Well, not only that, but they're weaponizing it by saying that that's what you're going to do once you get in office.
Isn't it great?
By ignoring what they're doing right now. It's crazy.
I heard it. Somebody was defending me today. They said, no, they say that's what you're doing to him. They're going, he's going to put us in jail. He's going to invest.
That's what you're doing.
That's what you're doing to him.
Yeah.
A lot of people say, will you do that? Will you do that to him, to them, if you win? You know, the presidency has tremendous power. I could have put crooked Hillary in
I respected
jail.
that you didn't because what you said was it would be bad for the country.
No, I can't. I couldn't even imagine. You have, first of all, Secretary of State, but more importantly, the wife of the President of the United States of America going into jail. And if you ever saw when I'd say something about her, they'd all say, I didn't say it. I never said it. They say, lock her up, lock her up. And I'd always go, take it easy, just relax. We're going to win this thing. Take it easy, take it easy. And I'm telling you, I kept it down, just the opposite. Now they say, oh, Trump wanted to put her in jail. No, I saved her from going to jail. They had more stuff on her. And Comey had it, because when Comey got up, and he stupidly, because he's a stupid guy too, he goes, he's a stupid son of a bitch. He got up.
Oh, man. Here's another one. Oh, we played that one. Here is them talking about what it really means to be a rebel.
Silencing the rebels are Republicans now. They're like, you want to be a rebel, you want to be punk rock, you want to buck the system, you're a conservative now. That's how crazy. And then the liberals are now pro silencing criticism. They're pro censorship online. They're talking about regulating free speech and that regulating the First Amendment. It's bananas to watch.
Joe, they come after their political opponent.
Well, they do.
I got more guys. I always say, you know, I kid, but I'm not kidding. I've been investigated more than Alphonse Capone. He was the meanest of them all. He'd kill you in 2 seconds if he didn't like you, right? I've been under investigation more than Alphonse Capone, only because it's political opponent stuff. And I've won. I won the big case in Florida. I'm winning the other stuff.
Oh, boy. Yes, we watched that clip already. Okay, let's see what else is there. Listen to this one.
People talk.
So I always got more publicity than other people, and it wasn't like I was trying. In fact, I don't know exactly why. Maybe you can tell me why.
Oh, I could definitely tell you. You said a lot of wild shit.
Maybe. Maybe
You said a lot of wild shit, and then CNN, in all their brilliance, by highlighting your wild shit, made you much more popular.
Yeah.
And they boosted you in the polls because people were tired of someone talking in this bullshit, pre-prepared politician lingo. And even if they didn't agree with you, they at least knew whoever that guy is, that's him. That's really him. Yeah. When you see certain people talk, certain people in the public eye, you don't know who they are. You have no idea who they are. It's very difficult to know. You see them in conversations. They have these pre-planned answers. They say everything. It's very rehearsed. You never get to the meat of it. One of the beautiful things about you is that you freeball. Like, you get out and you do these huge events, and you're just talking, and you're making. We've highlighted you on the show many times when you did this Biden impression where he's walking around, he doesn't know what he's doing. It's funny. It's stand up. It's funny stuff, but it's like you and you were making fun of Elon one time. You were doing an Elon impression. It's great. You have like comedic instincts. Like when you said to Hillary, "You'd be in jail." Like that's great timing.
Yeah.
But it's like that kind of stuff was unheard of as a politician. Like no one had done that.
So
no one had done it. So let's be clear about what we're witnessing. The most watched political interview of 2024, some are saying is actively being suppressed, while Kamala's team demands special treatment. When Joe Rogan reaches more Americans in 3 days than CNN does in 3 months, you understand why they're terrified. So the question for our viewers is this. What do you think Kamala Harris is afraid that Rogan might ask her during a full 3-hour interview? Share your thoughts in the comments below.